Ooh, let's see what present Comair Alexa got me today. Alright. Wait. I feel like I already have this Becky Lynch. Okay. Maybe I don't have this one. Well, I guess this is a new attire. Huh. Oh! Oh. Well, at least this figure doesn't have that godforsaken face sculpt. Ugh. Oh. Hey y'all, welcome to LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. And before we get started, I just want to remind you to please hit subscribe to become an official resident of LJV and get a first look at all future women's wrestling figures like today's very exciting review of Basic Series 143, Becky Lynch. Now, I'm going to be honest here, when I first saw images, I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this. What a boring basic. However, there are some unique little details on this figure that's never been done before on a Becky Lynch basic. So I'm excited to open this up and take a closer look. And if you can't tell by my ugly holiday sweater, I'm a big fan of Becky Lynch. She is one of my favorite superstars. I think she's inspiring, she's awesome, and she's got a book coming out in March, so I'm definitely going to pick that up. Now that being said, let's dive into this figure and start off by taking a closer look at the packaging. Alright, so let's start off taking a closer look at the packaging. Now, we have covered this a couple times on the channel here, but this is the relatively new basic style packaging. Now, the biggest difference with this new style basic packaging is obviously the color scheme and the design. We have a unique shape here. It even goes in a little bit on the side angle-wise. And then we have a white theme with a large superstar image in the corner of the beautiful Becky Lynch. And we have this little icon up top, which is kind of funny, because on the men's figures it says like new articulation or something, and on the women's it's just blank, because the women's basics are mostly unchanged. Now, they are changed a little bit as to now the hands are swappable, but everything else remains the same from previous women's basics, because the women's basics have always been more articulated than the men's figures, so that's why. Now, the one thing I will say about this figure in the new design is I don't like the placement of the series number. Now, I know that sounds so dumb and so petty, but on the kind of more recent basics we saw the last couple years, it was a black and red theme, and on the side there was a blue line that really stood out, and it had the series number, and I think that really pops and shows you exactly what series you're looking at, which is really cool. But I do think this design is cool. It's not that I don't dislike it, I just like that feature on the previous basics. Now, I'm going to not go into complete in-depth detail about the packaging, because I don't think that's why people watch my videos, to watch me review the packaging, but I digress. On the back here, we have Becky Lynch there. She's defined as a grappler. We have the series, her name. We have that blank logo up there, and then we have the rest of the line. I might actually pick up that Ashanti the Adonis, because it looks really cool. But yeah, that is it in package. So let's open this up and take a closer look at the figure itself. WWE Basic Series 143, Becky Lynch. This attire is from the WWE Day 1 Premium Live event, which took place on January 1st, 2022 from Atlanta, Georgia. On this night, Becky Lynch would defeat Liv Morgan to retain the Raw Women's Championship. Alright, some overall first impressions of this figure. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's not very flashy. It really doesn't pop or stand out very much when you put it on the shelf amongst all her other figure releases. but it is a different and unique attire that we haven't gotten of Becky yet. It's also a good thing that we do have the face sculpt and scan that has worked for her in the past. We didn't get that Elite 100 one, which is an abomination, okay? And also, there's some cool little added things on this figure, like the included articulation and swappable hands, and also the knee pads I'm really excited to cover because they're this new kind of material that we've really only seen on a couple Charlotte Basics, but we'll cover that in a little bit here. Now, that being said, let's take a closer look, starting with that hair and face. Alright, so as far as the face sculpt, face scan, and hair sculpt goes, hey, at least they played it safe. What I mean by that is they didn't try a new sculpt and scan like they did on Elite 100, because that was a complete abomination in my opinion, and they have used this sculpt and scan in particular quite a few times. Now, it's actually not my favorite. My favorite Becky Lynch sculpt and scan is her ponytail face sculpt. And I'll put an image up right here. She had it released a couple times, but Basic Series 115 is kind of what I'm referring of. That comes to mind when I'm thinking about it. And what I love about that face sculpt and scan is she has a little bit of a hint of a smug little smirk, and also her eyebrow is a little bit raised. And I just love that arrogant heel, or that arrogance that comes off of that face sculpt and scan. So that's my favorite, but I think this one works. I think it's safe. I think they played it safe here by using the sculpt and scan that does resemble her quite a bit. I think it looks really, really good. The only thing I don't like is the lack of real emotion. I know it's supposed to look like aggressive or like serious, but with the lack of the eyebrows being furrowed down or anything, it just kind of looks like she, I don't know, drink too much coffee and is crashing or something, you know what I mean? But I think it does work pretty well. I also really like the hair sculpt. If you look at the detailing here, there's even a little braid entwined in her hair that's coming over her shoulder. I think the color looks great. So yeah, this sculpt and scan we've seen plenty on Becky figures, but I think it works great, so that's fine. As far as body sculpt and attire, per the usual on Becky's basic figures, I think they did a great job with part choices. Really does resemble Becky. I think that's really, really cool. And what's really cool about it is, you know, one of my biggest pet peeve in women's wrestling figures is that painted over belly button looks like Victoria's Secret body paint. And here, it is actually not dimpled, so it's smoothed over, so it does resemble her wearing some type of fabric over that belly button, which is a nice little detail there. So taking a closer look at the attire itself, it is just a base black color, which is a little boring, but like I said, we haven't gotten this before. It's nice that we have this kind of dark, like gunmetal steel type gray in that design on the front. It's painted very cleanly. On the back, we have it angled down a little bit. She has these arm sleeves painted on in black with that gunmetal gray or silver around the wrist. The bottoms are just a plain black. And then here's what I think really stands out. This is silly, but hear me out here. So these knee pads are a real stretchy rubber type material. Now, this is kind of the same material that we saw like in that Ronda Rousey leather jacket in Elite 97. A couple men's figures use this technology too. It's kind of a newer plasticky rubber type technology that Mattel's using. And there were a couple Charlotte Basics. One was in a Championship Showdown 2-pack with Alexa Bliss that uses this new technology as the knee pads, and I love it. I think it looks great, and on top of that, it feels really cool. It really does add to the figure having that different texture and that different material, and I think using that as a knee pad is definitely the way to go in the future. I hope they start doing it on the Elites and all the women's basics because it looks good. And the boots are just a plain black, so yeah. Alright, so let's do a little comparison segment here. So on the far left, we have that Then Now Forever Becky Lynch Elite that came in that 4-pack Target exclusive. In the middle, we have today's figure, Basic 143. And on the far right, we have Basic Series 115. Now, I believe I reviewed this about 2 Jillmases ago. Might have been 3, I think it was 2. But either way, these are all kind of similar. Actually, no, scratch that. This Then Now Forever Becky Lynch Elite is nothing like this basic or any of her basics. I just wanted to find an excuse to show y'all this figure again because the Jillies voting for Women's Wrestling Figure of the Year will be open in January, and I wanted to give y'all another look at this figure because, in my opinion, this is the front runner for Women's Wrestling Figure of the Year for the Jillies Award Show. I freaking love this figure. I really wanted to show y'all this again, so I actually found an excuse to put this in this video just so y'all can see this thing. I mean, look how freaking cool this is. Okay. Anyway, let's do a comparison between some of her basics. So on the right, as I mentioned, is Basic 115. In today's 143, they're very similar, right? I mean, very, very similar. Obviously, the plain black attire with little accents is a little different form factor attire. The biggest difference with today's is we have the swappable hands with added articulation. And then we have those new knee pads. That's that stretchy rubbery material, which is nice. Now, I really don't think today's figure is a must need. It's not a figure that you have to rush to ringside and pick it up, in my opinion. If you're curious about the new women's articulation in the hands for the basics or that new knee pad material, I think it's a excellent, solid Becky figure to pick up, but I don't think it's necessary, really. Now, this one on the right is that Scan and Sculpt that I love. I prefer it. I think it is the absolute best. Doesn't get enough love. Doesn't get enough credit. She got that arrogant little smirk to the side, the raised eyebrow, her left eyebrow there raised up. Then we have that ponytail sculpt. So I love that. However, this basic doesn't really stand too well. Now, it does have like the more Becky Lynch type boots that are shorter. Maybe that's why. But it doesn't stand up too well, which drives me nuts. So at least today's basic stands up. So yeah, not a whole lot to compare to today. I do have all of Becky Lynch's figures, and I could spend all day comparing and contrasting, but for a basic figure, I just wanted to show you some key points and find another reason to show this Then Now Forever Elite. Alright, and let's briefly touch upon articulation here, because there is an added little feature that we'll talk about. So the head can move in pretty good directions here. It's on a ball joint, shoulder in all different directions here. But we don't have an upper arm swivel. Obviously, this is a basic figure. We have single jointed elbows, but they can flex about 90 degrees. That's pretty good. Now, here's what's new is we have these wrists that can rotate all around, but they can also extend up and flex down. And the best part is they are removable on the women's basics now, so that's really, really cool. You know, if you have some extra hands from an Elite you can use. Oh boy, let's hope I can get this back in. Yep, okay, we got it back in. So yeah, the wrists are removable and they are interchangeable here. So we also have a swivel at the waist. Thighs on a ball joint can move in all different directions. Knees are single jointed, not much flexion there. But what's cool about these knee pads, they don't really inhibit that flexion at all because they're so flexible. And then we have a boot swivel. And that's all the articulation. So nothing crazy, but the hand addition is nice. Alright, so overall, I give WWE Basic Series 143, Becky Lynch an overall score of a 7 out of 10. Now, I know this is not the most exciting Becky Lynch. It doesn't have the most toyetic attire, but for what we get here, it's a pretty darn quality basic. I really love that added articulation that's new. Love this new knee pad material, and even though it's not a crazy extravagant attire, I think the execution here is really, really good. I'm glad that they went with this previous Scan and Sculpt that looks just like her. So yeah, I think this is a solid basic, and remember my basic scoring scale is different than my Elite scale, which is different than my AEW scale. So as far as basic goes, I think this is above average, in my opinion. Not too crazy exciting, but I think it's a darn good Becky Lynch figure, so yeah. Thanks for stopping by LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. For a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews, make sure to hit subscribe and become an official resident of LJV today. Also, head on over to ringsidecollectibles.com and use coupon code LJV at checkout to save 10% on your next order of women's wrestling figures. Now stay tuned, I have a lot of really exciting women's wrestling figure related videos to come out the rest of Jillmas Month all the way up until Christmas Day. Now Christmas Day, I have a very special video I have planned for y'all that I've been working on for a long time. So stay tuned for that, and hopefully I can get it done by Christmas Day. But until then, there'll be lots of new content coming your way. Thanks for watching, and have a great night, y'all.